Hi, good morning, everyone. Just waiting for a few more people to join and then we can start. We'll start this in another minute. Just wait for, see if we get a few more people that want to join before we start kicking off. Right, okay, I'm going to start. So hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this IAB Europe Industry Insider webinar with Kantar. We'll also be joined by TikTok and Twitch today, which is very exciting. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Industry Insider is actually a new format that we launched this year, and it's just there to provide real learnings and insights from industry leading companies. So what we want to do is be able to present the latest trends and best practices from across the industry. So far this year, we've tackled things like brand safety with GroupM. We've more recently looked at CTV advertising with Xandr and also creator marketing with TikTok. But today, I'm very delighted that we are here with Kantar to learn all about where great ads thrive. And I just want to introduce our speakers to you. So today we have Duncan Southgate, Global Brand Director, Media Insights Division from Kantar, who will be joined by Nadia Morozova, Consumer and Audience Insights Partner from TikTok, as well as Kevin Paskins, Panamia Sales Director from Twitch. So if we want to take a quick look at the agenda, so we can see what will be covered in this session. Okay, great. So first up, we have Duncan, who will be discussing key findings from Kantar's media research study, just so we can find out why consumers are so positive about ads on certain digital media platforms. He will then moderate a panel session with Nadia and Kevin, where we will learn how brands can best take advantage of exciting media spaces, such as TikTok and Twitch. It'll be then your chance to ask any questions. So as you can see at the bottom of the interface, there is a Q&A box, which you can add any questions in. As with all of our events, this is live, so we do really encourage you to post those questions. We will also be recording the event, so if anyone does miss this, we can obviously share it afterwards. But with that, I will hand over to you, Duncan. Great, thanks a lot, Lauren. It's great to be here. So yeah, within the first section, the first 20 minutes or so, I'm going to be talking about the media reaction study and some insights into what makes great ads thrive, the places that make great ads thrive. We're going to see some fundamental differences between online and offline channels. Obviously, because this is an IAB Europe webinar, we'll be deep diving into digital channels as part of that section. We'll be contrasting consumer opinions with those of marketeers, which generates some interesting insights. And then finally, we'll be touching briefly on an opportunity to better plan using Medium as message. The reason, I guess, the setup for this study, the theme of this study is that great advertising needs great media environments. And I think this is an area of an increasing importance, certainly from an advertiser perspective. Alejandro from P&G talks very neatly here about needing to respect consumers with the advertising environments that we choose. Otherwise, that's bad for the industry in general. And Michaela talks very well about the need for trust, because if Colgate Palm Olive ads aren't going to be trusted by consumers if they're not in places where the audiences trust the advertising formats and trust the medium. These aren't lone voices. For the purposes of this media action study, we conducted a survey of global marketeers, including a couple of hundred European marketeers as well. Of the various things that are driving media budget decisions today, these factors, appropriateness for campaign objectives and receptivity to advertising content, are the highest factors, the most important factors of all. They top things like ROI, costs, and conversion rates in terms of the factors that decide where marketers put their money.
So that's pretty good, because that's the topics that we're going to be exploring today. We're going to be looking at appropriateness and receptivity to ads in different media channels and different media platforms or brands. So what do I mean by an online-offline equity divide? Well, from an online perspective, again, since this is an IAB Europe webinar, the story is going to start out a little bit negative, but it will pick up. What I'm going to share today is the headline rankings from the Media Reactions approach, which is essentially a net promoter score for different online channels and ad formats. It looks at, we've been asking sort of simple questions about what people think of ads in different channels since 2001 with a program called Ad Reactions. For Media Reactions, we've enhanced that. We've taken a bigger diagnosis, and when I'll show you that diagnosis in a minute, and we've added this new layer of understanding specific media platforms. The overall channel ranking looks like this within Europe. Consumers are actually, from an online perspective, disappointingly far more positive about offline formats. Now, obviously, it's been a tough year for the cinema industry, but I think it's hopefully some reassurance for them that people do really like cinema ads. The reason consumers like cinema ads is because they think they're really good quality, and they're less intrusive than some of the other ad formats that are out there. People are also really positive about print because they think those ads are trustworthy, relevant, and they're less intrusive. And sponsored events are the least saturated channel of all, and the least intrusive. So people really tend to like brands that sponsor events. So there were 20 channels we featured in total. So it's a bit disappointing that aside from digital out of home, there's no online ad formats in the top 5. So let's try and understand that a bit more as we look at the diagnosis of our ad equity overall ranking. We ask 5 positive statements and 5 negative statements. And as you can see here from the footprints of online channels combined in aggregate, the 10 online channels versus the 10 offline channels in the study, there's quite different footprints. Online ads tend to be considered more intrusive and more excessively targeted than offline channels, which are generally considered to be more trustworthy, better quality, and a little bit more fun and entertaining even. Now, this is the sort of the most negative point is going to be if you're coming at this again from an IAB perspective, but it is important to understand that intrusion is the single factor which drags down attitudes to a channel more than anything else. So trying to find ways you can be less intrusive from a consumer perspective, yet still deliver your message is the key, is the key insight from this study. Now, it's not all channels have such intrusive, not all online channels are so intrusive as others. And let's look at the channels now, which are considered more positive or viewed more positively. Influencer content of the online channels is actually viewed most positively because those it's considered more relevant. And we know that's particularly true for categories like luxury goods and travel. Podcast ads are generally more popular as well because that environment is considered less cluttered. And streaming TV content is considered a bit better quality than many other formats. And those 3 tend to avoid some of the negative associations of the most intrusive online formats. That story is fairly consistent around Europe. There's some slight differences. So podcast ads are viewed most positively in Germany, and in the UK, streaming TV ads are actually up above podcast ads. And in France, we see online display ads viewed more positively. They're actually 3rd in the French ranking. But overall, the story is fairly consistent, both in Europe and also around the rest of the world. Now, this is where there's a big switch in our story. So we've been relatively down on online, with some exceptions for the less intrusive formats. But as soon as we ask about media brands, we see a very different story. In contrast to offline TV and print brands, it's usually the best online brands tend to have more positive overall ad equity rankings. So let's explore which brands have risen to the top and then understand why. If we look first at France, you'll see that the French ad equity ranking is topped by Twitch, and then second in that ranking is TikTok. the third spots is Canal Plus, and then you see the print Le Monde brand picking in, as well as Deezer, the music platform. So digital topping or leading the way in France. Let's try and understand what Twitch has done among French users to take that top spot. There's obviously less users of Twitch than some other platforms in France, but among those users, the Twitch users find the ads on the platform much more fun and entertaining than other ad platforms. And they also consider the ads to be more relevant and useful. And looking at the negatives, those negatives are much less. So they're far less likely to think the platform contains too much advertising or that the ads there are too intrusive. And we'll talk to Kevin at the end about what he thinks the reasons behind this ranking are. So that's why it's possible to see a relatively small platform topping our overall ad equity ranking. Let's look now at Germany. In Germany, we didn't actually include either TikTok or Twitch. At the time we decided the ratings, the platforms were relatively small in Germany. Obviously, things have changed quite a bit during 2020. But with TikTok and Twitch out of the equation, Instagram and Snapchat topped the list. The ads on Instagram and Snapchat are also considered pretty fun and entertaining, and also quite relevant and useful. Then Spotify takes third place in the German ranking, with the print brands Spiegel and Focus rounding out the top 5. They score particularly well on trust. In the UK, TikTok topped the list, leading the way thanks to the excitement and the passion for the innovative content on the platform. It clearly extends to the attitudes to the advertising in the environment as well. TikTok's followed by Disney and then Twitch, and Snapchat and Instagram for very similar reasons to the ones I've just talked about in France and Germany. So let's take a look at the TikTok ad equity profile in the UK and France combined. Ads on TikTok are considered much more fun and entertaining than other brands, but also there's this other significant strength of innovation. They're considered innovative and significantly different from other ads that are out there. Again, perceived volume is low, and so is intrusion, which really helps the overall rating as well. Now, the challenge, of course, is going to be for TikTok to maintain these really strong perceptions as they ramp up monetization. We'll maybe come to that again in the panel discussion at the end. Just to give you a quick view outside of Europe, obviously Europe is our focus for today, but TikTok actually topped the rankings in the US, UK, and Australia, and was the #1 brand across the overall global picture. In China, where obviously the TikTok brand is called Douyin, the Douyin brand scored really well there as well. It was also second in that ranking, but it was pipped to the post by a brand called Redbook, which is relatively small and also a nicely a less cluttered environment with a fairly passionate user base. Now, TikTok wasn't asked in Brazil, and that's where Google topped the ranking. Google also scores really well in the US and Germany and Australia, thanks to good scores on trust and relevance. It does score a little bit less well in the UK and France, where we see some slightly stronger targeting concerns. Now, but as you can see, from an internet or digital perspective, it's an online brand topping the ranking in every single country. Again, this is the point that premium digital brands seem to get above this overall concerns about online channels generically. There are some offline brands that score particularly well as well. We've talked about Disney, Spiegel, and Canal Plus already. But if you look in the US, for example, ESPN is considered a more fun TV advertising environment than some of the other TV broadcasters. So that's the picture of the overall ad equity rankings. Let's move now from this consumer view of the world to what marketeers are looking to do, or what their preferences are, and how they're planning to adjust their media spend. So if we aggregate the responses from UK, France, and Germany together, we get to this picture that you've seen, with cinema topping the list, followed by print, events, and digital out of home. Among European marketeers, their preference is actually more for TV and digital formats. So online video tops the list, followed by TV, with streaming TV just behind, and social newsfeed ads making the top 5. Now, that's quite different, and obviously there are different perspectives. They're coming at this question from different views. Marketers want to deliver impactful ads, whereas consumers are generally trying to have as uninterrupted a viewing experience as possible. They do appreciate some kinds of advertising, but they're trying on the whole to minimize their impact with interruptions. So it looks like, in some cases, print drops out of the top 5. Perhaps marketeers struggle to disentangle their knowledge that print circulations are declining from how well the medium works. Actually, print ads continue to work really well in our database, but they are obviously, circulations are reducing, spend is reducing in line with that. So I guess more positively, the good news for the online industry here is that the attitudes are more positive than maybe consumers view the ads, perhaps because they understand that online ads work really well to build brands and drive sales. They're very cost effective, and we've got lots of evidence at Kantar about that. And that's probably what's making European marketers very comfortable with those ad formats. Again, we see differences when we look at the brands. So if we aggregate the 3 countries together in Europe from the consumer view, TikTok would be top in Europe, followed by Twitch, Instagram, Snapchat, and then Spotify. Now, we asked a subset of the brands among European marketeers as well. European marketeers' preference is actually primarily for YouTube, Instagram, and Google. TikTok also makes the top 5. We didn't ask about Twitch in the marketeers survey, but you can see there's a little bit more comfort with brands that they may be more familiar with using within the digital space. So it could be that many marketers haven't yet run a TikTok campaign or run any ads on Twitch. Maybe they don't use the platform themselves and have that lack of familiarity. So there seems to be this gap that obviously my suggestion would be that marketers need to be constantly reevaluating their own assumptions. They may have these preferences, whether they're in line with what consumers are really looking for today is a question. So yeah, maybe we'll come to this question at the end of whether how marketers can educate themselves about what the right environments for using really are. This is what we know marketers have done this year and plan to do next year. We know that during 2020, due to COVID-19, many of them had to reduce spend. 61% had to reduce their budgets overall, and that was it was mainly cinema, events, out of home, and print that took the hit. Digital was less impacted, but probably a lot of the growth that would have happened was stunted. But moving into 2021, which is the turquoise bars in this chart, you can see that pretty much all digital media channels should expect to see a large number of advertisers increasing their spend. 57% more advertisers claim they're going to increase their online video spend in 2021 than plan to decrease it. So again, the digital the environment looks positive for outlook looks positive for 2021. We also have some understanding of why. It's not just that the audiences are spending more time there, it's also that people are looking for greater agility from digital media. They're looking for more flexible buying arrangements generally, but digital delivers agility. And rather than being sort of becoming more cautious as a result of the COVID pandemic, actually people claim they're going to be more innovative and more willing to try something new. So that's really encouraging. Yet people won't be trying things without testing them out. There is the number one thing on this long-term strategic implications slide is that there will be a greater focus on campaign effectiveness, and clearly that's going to be measurement against whatever that goal is, whether it's a brand building goal or a sales generating or a conversion generation goal. So that's two of our 3 chapters. The final chapter, which is actually just a single slide, talks about this, going back to this idea of aspirations, of not just wanting to deliver effectiveness, but to do it in the right way. Increasingly, brands are trying to align their purpose with the purpose of the media partners. Now, what we've done within the media action study is try to quantify what has perhaps historically been something more of a qualitative or art. So let's imagine you're Guinness in the UK. You as a brand have the personality of being a trustworthy, wise, generous, different and creative brand. And let's assume for now that you want to keep that and maintain that positioning. In order to reflect that personality, you would be best suited to brands including Channel 4, Spotify and The Guardian. Channel 4 on its own aligns well with aspects of difference, trust and creativity. Spotify helps bring in some idea that you're a creative and generous brand, and The Guardian covers this idea that you're a bit wise. So no single brand will align perfectly with what your aspirations are, your own positioning is, but if you blend media brands together, then you can reflect that in your strategy. Now, obviously, this is an overlay on top of whether it's the right audience, whether it's the right cost, and so on, and whether it works. But I think this idea of quantifying what has historically been a bit of a sort of a gut feel decision is something that more brands will be looking to do in the future as they try to guard their brand more carefully in the media space. So that's it. The story from Media Actions is basically that there is this massive divide between online and offline channels. People have very different attitude to channels than they do to brands. From an online perspective, it's great to see some of the best online brands topping the rankings and managing to overcome some of those more general concerns people have about online advertising. There is this gap between consumer and marketeer perspectives. So marketers should always, while it's understandable what you want to deliver impactful advertising, be cautious about using in formats that are too intrusive. And if you are going to be intrusive, you've got to make sure your ad works really well in that kind of space. There's obviously been a shift in everyone's environment this year due to COVID. The good news is that will increase spend in digital platforms, and the reliance there on the digital's greater agility is a smart thing. We expect online video to grow more than any other format. And obviously, this final point is understanding personality will unlock the power of medium as message. So the implications are clear. If you're an advertiser or an agency, you should be tailoring your approach based on what consumers want and expect, and also keeping pace with their changing habits and expectations. So beyond that, make sure that you're partnering appropriately to reflect your brand aspirations. Excuse me. If you're a media brand, look at the platforms that are now considered class leading from a consumer perspective. You need to appeal to both the consumer in terms of that's where your ads are going to be, and also the marketeers who are going to be deciding whether your environment is appropriate, and understand what personality your brand brings to the party. There's way more insight in the free global report, or also the country level data and reports that are available to purchase. Please do check out the link that you can see on the screen there for more detail. But I think that's more than enough from me. We're now delighted to be joined by Nadia Morozova and Kevin Paskins from TikTok and Twitch, respectively. If there's any questions that build on the themes of today that you'd like to ask Nadia and Kevin, then please do type them into the Q&A box. I'll kick us off with a couple of my own to get us rolling. First of all, Nadia, Kevin, thank you for joining. Can we just check you're there and unmuted and we can hear you okay?
Yeah, definitely. Hello.
Hi, Nadia.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Kevin. You've got a shirt on as well. We've both made an effort, which is great. So, okay. So I think what we'd like to try and do is this general theme is making the most of new media environments. And obviously there's a lot of commonality. As we saw, you have quite similar ad equity rankings and diagnoses for the TikTok and Twitch platforms. Let's try and go through what you think is behind that. So Nadia, if I could sort of turn to you first. It's obviously great. Congratulations on being topping our global ranking and the ranking in the UK as well. What do you think it is about the content on TikTok that's driving those positive consumer attitudes?
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me today for this webinar series. It's really exciting to hear that our mission to bring joy and inspire creativity is starting to show up in this industry research. When I hear that TikTok scored particularly well on ad equity attributes such as fun and entertaining and innovative, well, it really speaks me what I believe describes the very first time you open the app and end up seeing so many people being real, being quirky, and being fun. So in my opinion, I think there are a few important factors that make consumers to be positive about TikTok. First of all, it's community, it's discovery, and also its creator tools. So I firmly believe that TikTok is a community where everyone belongs. It's an inclusive platform that encourages users to be authentic selves while finding a diverse community that has similar interests but may not be seen otherwise else. For example, you can see videos on TikTok where doctors and nurses taking a break during their shifts to let off some steam, to be candid, and to educate. You can find celebrities being themselves and letting their guard down. You can see brand new artists posting about their journey in launching their music and seeing it taking off. So building on this, in terms of discovery, for every voice, there is an audience. For example, if I take an example of music, because it's so building in our DNA, you can see a video of a bass or piano player on their basement working on a song, and then quickly recognized by the community. And then later on, professional musicians start reacting with encouraging videos on our platform. And this creative loop can go on and on and on. This is the kind of rewarding experience that can work whether you are creating videos or just leaning back and finding them in your feed. In terms of the creator tools, this is something that I think is very special in how our community is making the most of it. Yes, we have unique tools, fun filters, video editing, but what is truly special is how much creators really think about cool new ways to express themselves. Sometimes it's a simple video with a great story. Sometimes it's an amazing effectful video. But the common thread is that we're seeing the community create more information-rich content that allows the viewer to lean forward and engage with the community. So to recap, I believe that it's about community, discovery, and creativity on our platform that build very engaging experience.
That makes a lot of sense. So, thanks a lot, Nadia. Certainly the creativity in the platform sucks me in, and I find myself having spent way too long playing around in the app almost every day. I guess let's turn now to Twitch. So, honestly, Kevin, I'm less familiar with Twitch as a user, so these results were more surprising to me. Can you give us a sense of why you think the ads on Twitch are seen to be so positive? I'm sure there's other marketers out there like me who haven't streamed for hours at a time that maybe won't fully understand what the environment is and why the ads are viewed so positively.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, I think it's important to understand what Twitch does to be able to understand why these results are coming out. So fundamentally, Twitch is a live streaming platform that allows creators to create live content on their own channel that users can then watch in real time. But the fundamental difference is that Twitch allows users to then interact with the creator and with the other people watching that channel through chat functionality. And so through that, you end up where people are forming real bonds, both with creators and with other people who are watching it. And it becomes a digital space where people actually hang out, like it's a social space in its truest form. Bonds are then formed, and then communities are built around those different passion points and content that's created. And so that's Twitch that is a really top-down view of Twitch. But fundamentally, like, the importance of Twitch comes down to community. So it's how those communities go on to support each other. Similar to what Nadia was talking about with TikTok, those communities and those bonds are what forms and is the backbone of Twitch. And you can see like there's a really like transparent relationship between a creator on Twitch, just generally, because I mean you can't script live. So there's a sense of openness, and there's a sense of it being very raw, and that they know who that person is. They can't fake it. And there's also that same openness transports over to how they are financially rewarded on the platform. And so there are three ways that like a Twitch creator makes money. The first is through ads, so like a rev share of ads. The second is through donations, and that can be through subscriptions, or it can be through one-off donations. And so there's a real understanding of that value exchange between the audience and the creator, and how they are able to continue to make the content and form that space that community has been built upon. Off the back of that, you end up where brands are becoming a part of that. And so when you are putting an ad in front of these communities, you are offering a user the opportunity to contribute, almost giving the user a moment of altruism, that by engaging with that ad, they are able to contribute to that community. And we see lifts in terms of how the brands are like performing off the back of that, because they've created that opportunity for the user. The second part, I mean, so that's definitely one of the main reasons why I think we see real positivity around ads on Twitch, because of that completely different model in terms of ads helping creators. The second I would say is how we are, like, our ads are really uncluttered. So we only have two, like the video ads are very, very simple. There's like pre-roll ads are soulless. And so there's just one ad that's a maximum of 30 seconds before the content starts. And then it's in control of the creator to determine the mid-rolls. And so they will weave that into the content. So it's very uncluttered and it's very organic in terms of how it works. And so those would be the main reasons predominantly.
That's great. No, and again, if what I think is underpinning a lot of that is and for you and also to some extent on TikTok is this idea that influence and content generically has this sort of trust and relevance, and people are selecting a stream which is got a sort of influence, a parallel to it here, essentially. And then if they trust that environment, then they're going to be trusting the content in that space too. So no, it's great. I guess the challenge, of course, is that we know marketers like environments that work, and they'll see this positivity, and we're already seeing this growth. Within our marketers survey, Nadia, TikTok was one of the platforms that people were most looking to increase their spending next year. So how are you going to maintain your positive position as the marketers are throwing more money at you and at the channels within your platform and maintain this idea that you're not too cluttered and that the ads work really well there?
Yeah. We've been very humbled to see the growth of our 100 million strong TikTok community in Europe. It's a unique platform where brands have been welcomed. And our format and joyful tone enables brands to be authentic and create a no judgment world where there is an audience for every voice. So the way our community interacts with brands is unique and is not like anywhere else. As I already said, music is a signature feature of our experience, and it's the most immediate way to emotionally connect with an audience, to capture and hold their attention. And by tapping into existing trends on the platform and encouraging users to create their own content via, for instance, hashtag challenges, people engage with brands in unique and joyful way.
Well, we all like a bit of joy in our lives this year. I guess we've all needed it more than ever. So yeah, as long as you can keep the joy in everyone's lives, then I'm sure the attitude will stay that positive. I guess what about from your point of view, Kevin? Again, like as more money gets thrown at Twitch and more money gets thrown at your streamers, will they be tempted to start adding in more and more minutes to the average hour? Or, how do you see yourselves maintaining this fantastically positive ratings as you grow into the future?
I think ultimately the future of us maintaining where we are is going to be staying true to the values that have got us here in the first place. And so number one, that's respecting and listening to our audience. And being authentic to that and understanding their needs and listening to them very carefully. I mean, if we take a look at what the research pulled out, Twitch was comparable in terms of trustworthiness to even the offline brand. We did really well there. And I think that's a reflection, as you sort of suggested, in regards to how people react to influencers and the trust they place in those influencers. But again, it's like to that earlier point I made in terms of not being able to script live, like that's a reflection of that in terms of ads being trustworthy and it coming from that place. And so, I mean, you also look at the second one was fun and entertaining. We massively over-indexed on that. And that's because the content is fun and entertaining. And that's how the creators are engaging that audience. And so they're then finding the right moment to run those mid-rolls. They're stitching it into their content and making it less intrusive, making it part of the action. And then it's an opportunity to engage and support the streamer. So that in itself makes it fun and entertaining. And again, we scored really high, I think, on ads not being intrusive and on our environment being uncluttered. And so ads feeling like they're in a premium position. I think the reflection of what our values are of listening to our audiences and allowing our streamers to have control of the ads and manage that relationship with their communities to understand what they will tolerate and getting that balance right will be crucial to our future success. But the points that have been pulled out, like what our brand represents in consumers' minds, is quite neatly mirrored with the sort of behaviours we see and will promote on our site in terms of how we want to continue moving forward. So hopefully we're getting it right as it stands and we'll continue to do so.
Excellent, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I love the idea that the streamers can control the medium themselves, and so, you know, it's a natural break when they're off for a cup of tea, they can put the ad in, and it makes more sense than if something just randomly appears as, with no warning at sort of second 45 of a video you're trying to concentrate on.
Exactly, yeah, we've got such a breadth of content, like, so from like different like each game is going to be completely different about where a natural break is. So on Fortnite, it might be when you're waiting for all of the people to populate online before you start the game. It will be completely different to Dota 2. It will be completely different to music, to sports, and the whole breadth of content we have. And so allowing our, enabling our streamers to have that authority and be able to make those decisions themselves makes for a far more seamless experience.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. One of the questions I've been getting a lot about the overall study is, does this matter? So people have been asking me, look, it's lovely that consumers prefer ads in certain places, but as we saw with the marketers' view, the marketers care a bit more about tend to prefer some of the more intrusive formats, presumably driven by the need to build brands, drive sales, impact the bottom line. So does this receptivity matter? Marketers claim that it matters up front, but from a TikTok perspective, Nadia, I mean, you're seeing really good scores on these consumer acceptance rankings, but are you also seeing that TikTok can build brands and drive sales?
Definitely. So we all know that TikTok is a new advertising platform, but we have already seen positive brand metrics on TikTok, which perform actually above Kantar industry norms, both in North America and Europe. So the numbers which I have right now might be a bit, might need a bit updated, but as they come from March. I would like to highlight that the picture is very consistent both from US and Europe. So if we look at aided brand awareness, in Europe, we have 11.3% versus Kantar global norm of 2.8%. For brand favorability, we have 4.5% versus Kantar norm of 1.8%. And for purchase intent, we have 4.9% versus Kantar norm of 1.8%. So all these numbers are coming from Kantar measured brand lift studies.
And obviously, what's not to love about Kantar brand lift studies? No, and thank you for quoting our research. They are impressive figures for sure. And yeah, so we do tend to see many newer platforms having sort of something of a honeymoon period, but your scores are nonetheless exceptional. What about Twitch, Kevin? Again, how are you evidencing the effectiveness of campaigns on your platform?
So we do this in multiple ways, really. I mean, like the most fundamental way is on basic media metrics. We've got industry-leading view rates and viewability rates. It's a really highly viewable and engaged format, as you would expect from the numbers you see on our site. But we've done a study with Lumen where we looked at the visual engagement on our ads. And we saw that, like versus other platforms, we are seeing the same levels of visual engagement as we do with the content with our ads. It really is a part of that of the experience. And as we know that attention, like this is an attention economy fundamentally. And if people aren't looking at ads, they're never going to work. So we know that people are looking at them. But in terms of how does that build out and how does that continue to grow? I mean, in terms of us being able to build brands, we've got numerous examples, but the ones that spring to mind, I'm picking the most peculiar because I think they're the most interesting, I guess. But like, let's take a brand like Corsadil, for example, which, if anyone who isn't familiar with Corsadil, is like a mouthwash for gum disease specifically. Very, like, always had a traditional heartland of like an older skewing audience, normally female skewed. We skew male and young, but they were looking to reach a new audience, and they needed to work with us in terms of being able to talk around a passion point and have a reason to work with us. 99.9% of ads that run on Twitch, you can run your existing creative and it'll be absolutely working. But Corsadil had particularly made their ad for a completely different audience, and it would have been inauthentic to our audience. It wouldn't have had any sort of cut through. And so we worked with them to build a gaming related ad. And we did it around pixel art, and we worked with different artists to make a retro style ad for them. and it's a completely new audience. The lift they saw, I can't share the details, unfortunately, but what I can tell you is, like, to give you an idea of the level of success, and they were measuring brand awareness, brand lift, and they were incredible results, to the point that they licensed the ad that we'd created and ran it across multiple platforms, like across all of the UK, and are now looking at international possibilities. So I mean, in terms of building a brand, we are very capable of doing that. You only need to look at examples like Porsche in terms of how we helped them with their Formula E launch and built an interactive game, or Burberry and helped them launch, like, which is the most recent example, I'd say, of how they launched their virtual fashion show on Twitch. We are able to build brands and give them a massive platform to be able to engage with this audience at scale.
Excellent. I love stories like that, where like a new environment forces people to think differently, and they think initially it's it's a bit of a pilot and it's sort of targeting something for a slightly extension of their core audience, but then when they discover new things about their own brand, they can then take that back to their mainstream campaigns. I think that's awesome. Also extends this whole idea of having a kind of interactive conversational campaign that can become a hashtag challenge that actually then drives other sort of broadcast media as well, I guess. On your point, Kevin, about this idea that you don't need to customize, but sometimes you can get even more impact if you do. I mean, we have great evidence at Kantar that integration across channels works well, but if you customize to specific contexts, you can get more than a 50% increase in your campaign effectiveness. So I guess that takes me to my my final question, which is around how brands can take the most of these, make the most of your specific platforms. So I guess, Nadia, do you want to talk a little bit about what brands should do to make sure that their content will really sing in the TikTok space?
Definitely. So one of the things we've been saying for a few months in the marketing community is don't make ads, make TikToks. This may feel light and inclusive, but when going back to this ad equity research results, I think this starts to reflect why we believe ensuring a positive experience across both the community and our ads is important for the long term. So my initial advice, and this is something that I want to give full credit to Katie Puris, who runs our global marketing team, is that brands should know that they don't have to be perfect on our platform. What's important on TikTok is to be sincere, to have a strong voice, and to share a sense of purpose. And of course, continue conducting good research.
Of course, of course. Yeah, no, I love the fact that you score well on quality, and that doesn't mean it's not excessive production values. It isn't like $4 million media budget or creative budgets. This is about quality that works well within the environment and matches the environment. What about at Twitch then, Kevin? It's again, what are the top tips you would give a marketer trying to get their content right for the Twitch environment?
I mean, fundamentally, Twitch offers an opportunity to reach a hard to reach audience, right? So this is a Gen Z audience, and whether it's an endemic or a non-endemic campaign, like video advertising is the way to reach this audience. And there was a study that said that 72% of Gen Z want to learn through video. That's an enormous opportunity for marketeers. But fundamentally, like in terms of like looking at that through the prism of Twitch, I guess, and the first thing is like being present. Like we talked about earlier about like how you can give users the opportunity to contribute to their communities by placing ads on the platform. And so that's the first one. And like that, you don't need to tailor it. If you are going to tailor it and take that next step though, the number one thing I can talk to you about really, like with Gen Z and also on Twitch, it's all about authenticity. It's absolutely crucial that if you're going to talk about their passion point, that you are doing so from a position of understanding that passion point. So we talk a lot in Twitch about not dad dancing, which if you'd have ever seen me dance at a wedding would know that I am guilty of. But from a marketing perspective on Twitch, it's really important to make sure that you know what you're talking about. So if you're going to start dropping in gamer language, make sure that you are taking that from a gamer community that understand it, not what you presume is the right language. Nothing will fly worse. Also, I mean, I think it's important to think, like, if you're looking at Twitch, what is it about Twitch that is driving this success? I mean, fundamentally, it's the ability to interact and impact on the content. There's no huge surprise that, like, I mean, I referenced it earlier, but our Porsche campaign, where our users were controlling what people did in real life and playing a real life game almost, with people strapped to cameras, like being able to impact the content as it happens is crucial. So think about the audience rather than as a passive member of the activity. They're an active part of it. And what should they be doing to be part of that content? But yeah, fundamentally, it's like, be present is number one. It's the first step. The second is, like, if you're going to talk around their passion point, make sure that you're doing it from a knowledgeable and authentic perspective. And then if you're going to start looking at like custom activations, we can help you do that with our team. And we have like a world of expertise to help you leverage it. But I'd also start to think about what are the creative elements you can do to engage this audience and interact with them in a way that you can't do on other platforms.
Excellent. Okay, I think we're running out of time, and I think we've covered all the questions we've got. So I think the wrap up from me would be looking across our three wonderful pictures there. I guess my sign off would be that obviously marketers know the importance of effectiveness. So make sure you measure effectiveness across these different contexts as you learn about new media environments. Clearly, the common theme across TikTok and Twitch is authenticity. So thank you, Nadia, for talking to us about the power of TikTok and the importance of making TikToks, not ads. And Kevin, thank you for reminding us that dad dancing is a bad idea. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you very much. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I guess we'll hand back to Lauren.
Hi, yes, thank you all. That was really great and a truly insightful session. So thank you so much for your time. And also thank you to everybody who joined us today. As we mentioned at the beginning, this has been recorded. So we will, of course, send this round to everyone that registered. But otherwise, I hope you enjoy your day. Thank you.